today is the day that we transition from our lecture series on letters, which has been wonderful, to some special topic lectures. Today we have a very important person here in the Honors College, Laura Clippard, and then the 2 weeks following we're going to have students who have successfully defended their honors theses. And we typically choose people who from different disciplinary backgrounds, and we'll have 2 per day. So Dean Viola and I are in the process of selecting the speakers now, and so we'll just see who we pick. But they should all be interesting, and not only will we learn about different topics, but we'll learn a little bit about the process of navigating the thesis process. Okay, so today I'm introducing someone who should need no introduction to you, Laura Clippard, who is not only one of our honors advisors, but is also the director of the Undergraduate Fellowships Office here at MTSU. Now, of course, her office is on the 2nd floor of our honors building, but the University Fellowships Office is open to everyone at the university, so honor students and all other students, graduate students, and she has done an amazing job. Ms. Clippard has been here for going on 10 years now, and she is, well, I don't have the words to describe her contributions to what we do here in honors. I hope that all of you have met her already, and if you haven't, I hope that you'll introduce yourselves to her. I would give her enormous credit for helping us to win so many prestigious national fellowships and study abroad opportunities. I know that several of you in this class have benefited from working with her directly. You know how dedicated she is to helping students identify the best opportunities for them, to help you pursue the things that you're interested in, and to help you discover things that you might not have thought of before. Because of her, many of you have successfully won REUs, you've won Fulbright Fellowships, Goldwaters, Phi Kappa Phi Fellowships, and you can just go down the list. As she's done in years past, she'll be talking today about becoming competitive for these national scholarships and fellowships. And with that, I will ask Ms. Clippard to come up, and please join me in welcoming her.
Welcome. My name's Laura Clippard, and I work in the Honors College as one of the advisors, but I also have a unique role in that I work directly with students on fellowships. So my role is to meet with students individually, to help them identify national scholarships that might be a good match for them. They can be honor students, but I work with a lot of non-honor students as well. Once a student has identified a good match, then my role is to be their cheerleader and their reader. So we have a team of people here, Dr. Phillips, Dean Vial, my graduate student, and many other people who read the applications, who give advice, and we try to help the student become as competitive as possible.
Stop right there. There was something I forgot to say. This is out of the ordinary, but Laura Clippard is herself the recipient of a Fulbright Fellowship. Please join me in congratulating her. She spent a decade helping students win these awards, and this year she won an administrative fellowship to go to Japan for 10 days or 2 weeks.
2 weeks,
or so.
yeah.
And it's a wonderful opportunity for her. It will benefit all of us here in the Honors College, and we're just very proud of her. I'm sorry I didn't remember that before.
We have a lot of students that do win national scholarships. These were some of our winners from 2018. We've had students win the Gilman. We've had the students win the Critical Language Scholarship, honorable mentions. It's a competitive process. And I really try to make it a learning process for the student. The other thing is that when a student applies for a national scholarships, they may not win, but hopefully they'll learn enough that the next time they apply for something, that their materials will be stronger. So I received a 2-week Fulbright. However, 3 years ago, I was rejected for that, okay? So I stepped back from that process. I looked at my application, and I said, I think they liked it because I was a semifinalist. What can I do to be better? What can I do to strengthen my material? Who can I ask to read it that will sort of rip it apart and give me lots of honest feedback? So we try to make it a useful process as well. So I don't want to miss anybody, okay? So if you have won a national scholarship or of some sort, I know there's at least 2 people here. Will you stand up and tell us your first name and what you won? And this can include the RAUs. Sometimes people win an RAU and we don't know it, or those types of things. Will you please stand? So, okay. So,
I'm Kirsten Cunningham. I won a NSF RAU and that very large scholarship.
I'm Alexis, and I won the Critical Language Scholarship for Arabic.
oh, very good. So, and I always like to point out the students who have been awarded this because sometimes students take themselves out of the running even before the competition starts. They'll say, oh, I'm not competitive enough for this. I shouldn't apply for this. I don't think I'm strong enough. Well, you know, I will tell you if I think you should wait till a later date to apply. For example, I won't name her name, but I had a student who came in and was interested in the Fulbright. And she had a very low undergraduate GPA, okay? Well, for Fulbright, they really care about your GPA. Okay, so I said, well, you have a really low undergraduate GPA, your activities are great. If you would wait about 1 year when because she had told me she was going to graduate school, apply while you're in graduate school, I think you might have a shot. She did that and she won, okay? So again, it's about the process. So the first step in this whole process is you have to be able to kind of talk about yourself, talk about your strengths, talk about your leadership roles. So the first step in that is keeping track of it. You know, put it in a folder, put it on your phone, however you do it. But you really want to talk about, you know, not just that I am a member of Phi Kappa Phi, but what did you do in Phi Kappa Phi? What was your leadership role? And it's going to be different depending on your major. So involvement in English might be being involved in collage versus involvement in science, which might be applying to do research here on campus. So it does vary. Talk to your advisors, talk to the people around you, keep your grades up. But when you sit down for a fellowship, sometimes people have trouble, like, well, what did I do my freshman year? You know, I think I was in a club. What was it? So you have to keep track of all that. And leadership is more than just listing things on a resume. So I'm a national reader now for Phi Kappa Phi Study Abroad. And one of the things that they tell us when we're judging students is it's not the length of the list. So if somebody has 15 hours a week in one activity, that's better than having one activity once a month. So having that deeper involvement is really going to help you in preparing for graduate school and preparing for fellowships or employment as well. You want to pursue what you care about. So students sometimes will say, I want to build my resume. And I'm like, well, I'm glad, but what do you care about? What interests you? Letters of recommendations. I always pick on Dr. Phillips, and he always gives me the same answer, but I'm going to pick on him anyway. So Dr. Phillips, what is the shortest amount of time anybody asks you to write a letter of recommendation?
24 hours.
Don't do that, okay? Don't do that. Now, what you ideally want in a letter of recommendation is you want to give them a month, 1 month solid. If you can give them more than that, great. You want to send them the link for what you're applying for. You want to give them a list of your activities, a resume. They need to know, faculty really will take the time to write a very, very strong letter for you, but they need to know Is this more about leadership? Is this more about your grades? Is this more about your research skills? They have to have a clear understanding of what you're applying for. So you need to give them that time. And you need to give them the information so they can do a good job. Now, I will say 90% of students hate these, okay? So if I came up to you and say, write a 750-word essay about yourself, your academic goals, and how you came to be the person that you are today. Most students go, ugh. So, and it's interesting because I had to do the same thing when I applied for my Fulbright. So I sat down with my blank sheet of paper and I said, well, what the heck am I supposed to write? You know, I had the same reaction that the students have, is that most people don't like this process. So what do we say? Start it early. Get feedback. Occasionally I will have a student come in and they'll say, well, I don't know what my strengths are. I don't know what I'm good at. I don't know what to write. I say, well, if you have a good relationship with your mother and your father, ask them. I bet they can rattle off all the stuff that's good about you. Ask your best friend. So you need to be able to talk about who you are, what you want to do, and how you became that person. So it's a really deep reflection, and a lot of the fellowships require this. But I will tell you, and you can probably speak from experience, okay? Once you do it and you get through it, it's much easier the second time around. What are some benefits to applying? I can speak to this from personal experience. You get to have feedback. You get to think deeply. You get to sharpen your skills. One thing that students will sometimes find, it's really time-consuming to apply for scholarships and fellowships. So you have your job, you have your family, you have your academics, and then you throw in fellowships. It can be quite time-consuming. So those issues, it's good to have good time management skills. I'm going to start talking now about opportunities on campus, opportunities nationally. I'm going to save time at the end if people have questions, if they have comments. So let's start by talking about a local opportunity. So Eureka, okay? Eureka is funding here on campus. You can get paid $500 to $3,500 to do a creative project. It does not have to be science, or a research project, okay? You can do that summer, fall, or spring. So if you're planning to do a thesis, if you're planning to do a creative project, why not get paid? If you have zero experience, that's okay. You can apply for one of the I don't have experience Eurekas, which is worth about $500. Now you do have to have a topic and you do have to have an advisor, okay? How many of you have received a Eureka grant? So quite a few of you. So again, it's a process that I encourage. Critical language scholarship. So the critical language scholarship allows Americans to learn less popular languages overseas. We did have 2 winners this year. We had Arabic and we had Indonesia, okay? There's different levels. So some languages require 0 background, okay? Some languages require at least a year, and some require advanced. So for Japanese, you have to have at least 2 years of Japanese before you go on it's usually about 8 weeks worth of language training. So the CLS is really nice. It pays for everything. It pays for your housing. It pays for language classes, cultural activities. Sometimes you do homestays. Sometimes you don't. But the idea is that you will use this language to enhance your professional career. The Gilman Scholarship. If you are, let me show of hands, how many of you have thought or are still thinking about a study abroad? Okay. How many of you have done a study abroad? So a lot of people in this room have done a study abroad or thinking about one. So the Gilman is a scholarship open to students that have a Pell Grant that are going to be overseas at least 4 weeks in one country. They want to include, expand diversity overseas. The Gilman, again, like a lot of the other fellowships, I'll read your essays. I'll help you through the process. The Fulbright is one of my favorite programs. It always has been, because the mission of the Fulbright is world peace, mutual understanding. So the idea behind Fulbright is that we send students to other countries, and other countries send students here. There's also different types of Fulbrights. There's Fulbrights for faculty, there's Fulbrights for educators, but that's the basic idea. You can either do research or you can teach English as an assistant. This year we had one student awarded the Fulbright to Bulgaria, one student awarded the Fulbright to Spain, and 2 alternates for Bulgaria, okay? So that's really good. The Fulbright is looking for people who are open-minded. It's usually about 8 to 10 months overseas. There's a big difference between the research and the teaching Fulbright. So for the teaching Fulbright, essentially they place you. They say, oh, you know, we had a student who went to South Korea and she's still there. This is where we're going to put you. This is the school you're going to be. Here you go. For the research, it's a bit more complicated. The research is more complicated because you have to find the placement yourself, okay? So if you want to do research in Germany, you have to contact someone in Germany and set up a research placement. So you can do that through going on a study abroad. You can do that through networking through faculty here. Or and this has worked, you can do it through what I called cold calling, which is scary. But you contact people in another country and you say, I'm interested in doing research with you. Here's my qualifications. And they can decide whether to work with you or not. And we had a student who was able to go to Israel, and he did research on on airplanes. So the Fulbright's a really good opportunity. There is a workshop coming up, so April the 11th at 10 a.m., which is this Thursday. The Fulbright person is flying down here from New York City. She is the Fulbright officer. And so if you are interested in the Fulbright, it doesn't matter if you are a senior or a sophomore or even a freshman. This is a great workshop. The other thing I like about Fulbright is that there's not a time limit on your application, and let me explain that. It means that you could graduate from MTSU, go to graduate school and apply for a Fulbright. Or you could graduate from MTSU, get a job, and 2 years later apply for a Fulbright. So once you have your bachelor's degree, you can take a Fulbright opportunity. Sometimes you can bring people with you. If you are married or you have children and you want to take those, some countries allow it. So again, if you're interested in learning more about the Fulbright, I would encourage you to come to this workshop. The Fulbright pays for airfare, it pays a monthly stipend, it pays for health insurance. Sometimes it pays for spouses and children. Sometimes it pays for research and tuition and language lessons. The thing about Fulbright is sometimes people will say, well, what's the requirement for Fulbright? And I will say one thing, it depends. It depends on the country. If you want to go to South Korea, you don't need language skills, but you have to be under age 30. It's the only country that I know of that has an age requirement. If you want to go to Laos, it's very flexible, okay? If you want to go to Germany, they have a lot of spots. And you only need 1 year or to be able to self-study to 1 year of German by the time you go. So it really depends. Can you guys guess what the most popular Fulbright country is? Anybody want to guess? Some of you know the answer. Come on, just a guess. Bulgaria. it was this year, yes.
England?
Yes, England. You've heard me talk before, though, so that's okay. There's other opportunities. We had 6 MTSU students offered the JET. And the JET is where you teach English in Japan. Of course, there's the Peace Corps. There's a lot of good options for students if you want to be overseas teaching. There's also fellowships that focus on public service. So the Truman is a scholarship that pays $30,000 for graduate school. You usually apply when you're a junior. And I tell students, I'm looking for someone who's very argumentative, okay? Very argumentative and is going out there doing some kind of service, doing some good. So you usually have to have at least a 3.0, and they're looking for someone who is active in their community, on campus, in the government. And they're looking for someone that has the potential to be a change agent. The Truman also, when you get your $30,000, I forget the exact amount, but they want you to work at least 3 years in a nonprofit, but you have like a 10-year window to do that. Again, public service, good communication, the ability to argue are all important. The Goldwater is, how many STEM people do we have? Raise your hands. Just a couple? Okay. So for the, if this is not you, pass the word, okay? The Goldwater is up to $7,500. They're looking for someone that wants a PhD in STEM and wants to do research in STEM as their professional career. So the cycle will open back up, and it'll be due in October. So the REUs are a great opportunity for students in the STEM fields to get experience. So you get paid $4,000 to $7,000 to do research at another university. There's no trick here. They pay your housing, they pay your air travel, and they usually pay your food, and you get to do research in a small team of 10 to 15 people. So usually what I tell students is if you want this type of opportunity, apply to at least 4 to 6 places. Some people go overboard, maybe it's not overboard, and they apply to 10. So I had a student who applied to 10 one year, but he got one. So, you want to try to apply. If you're interested in health, there's the Minority Health and Disparities Research. The NSF Fellowship pays for graduate school, and the benefits are usually up to $30,000 plus a stipend of $12,000. So those are really good. The Udall, she's not here, but Destiny Seaton won the Udall last year, and she is an honor student. And the Udall is for people who are interested in either environmental issues or in Native American health care. The Rhodes, there's a lot of scholarships. So I'm going to stop here and say there's about 200 different national scholarships. On the website, we have a list. I have links where you can find out more. So there's a lot of good opportunities. So sometimes it's hard for students to figure out what is the best option for me. So the Rhodes, that's the one that Bill Clinton had. People usually know about it. It's at Oxford, and you have to be under age 25 to apply and usually stay over at Oxford about 2 years. Now this one, you have to have about 8 letters of recommendation, okay? So usually I tell people that, and I said, how many do you have? And they're like, well, and I'll say, well, how many could you get? For the Rhodes, they usually like some kind of external recognition. So they, with these 8 letters, they want some of them to come outside of MTSU. That could be through an internship, through a study abroad. So they like that as well. Phi Kappa Phi. So let's talk about that. Dr. Phillips, what is your role in Phi Kappa Phi?
I am on the National Board of Directors for Phi Kappa Phi, and I served prior to that on the National Fellowships Committee.
And I think I didn't update my PowerPoint, okay? So Phi Kappa Phi, I believe it's 8,000 now? Yeah, I think so.
8,500.
And yeah.
And the top, we have two new fellowships that are $35,000 apiece. $35,000.
So we were looking, Dr. Phillips and I were looking at the numbers. We've won quite a few of these top fellowships. Phi Kappa Phi, if you have an opportunity to join, I joined when I was in college. I do recommend joining. You do have to be invited. So if you get that invitation, I would recommend joining. But they provide fellowship money for graduate school. You can apply for study abroad scholarships. There's the Love of Learning. So again, watch your email. And if you have the opportunity to apply, please do.
Yeah, there are several people in this class who were invited to join Phi Kappa Phi and who will be initiated tomorrow night. There are other people in this class who have already been initiated into Phi Kappa Phi. And I would just reiterate what Ms. Clippard has said. We have a very strong track record of winning Phi Kappa Phi awards, whether it is one of the Phi Kappa Phi fellowships. We've won the $5,000 fellowship numerous times. For 6 years in a row, we won that. And if we haven't won that, or in addition to winning that, we've had someone win the Study Abroad Phi Kappa Phi award, and we've also had
There's Love of Learning. Yeah, there's another one too. I can't remember. But anyway, Phi Kappa Phi is very generous with their scholarships. They have a very active campus community. So I guess the biggest thing is, I'm looking around the room, looking at your faces. I don't know if you've ever applied for something and not gotten it, but it can be discouraging. And sometimes when that happens, students are like, I'm not going to apply for that again. I would say, if you can, of course, take a day or two and mourn that loss, but then pick yourself up, okay? Because I saw this on the internet, and I didn't bring it with me, but there was a professor, and apparently he was a very famous professor, and he did a CV of everything that he won. And then he did a CV of everything that he didn't win, okay? And the things that he didn't win, that list was almost longer, okay? So there's value in the process. When you apply for a national scholarship, we give you feedback on your essays. We give you feedback about how to be stronger. It can help you get into graduate school. It can develop your intellectual process. And it can help you think about your long-term goals. And so I encourage students to apply for it. If they don't get it, it doesn't mean that your application was bad. Okay? It doesn't mean that they didn't like it. These things are nationally competitive. So, for example, with the UK Fulbright, which is the most competitive, they have about 900 people applying for about 25 slots. That's a lot of slots, okay? So, of course, when you're applying for a fellowship, you want to look at, is this fellowship worth my time? If they're picking, like there is a National Geographic internship, and I've heard that there's 20,000 people in one slot. Maybe you decide you don't want to do that one, but maybe you apply for Gilman, or you maybe apply for another fellowship and you don't get it. Don't give up. Learn from it, move on, and apply again, because in life, you can't get everything you want, but you can continue to learn and grow. So life is a journey, not a destination. So part of the process is thinking about your goals, thinking about your skills, and thinking about what you bring to the table. So don't sell yourself short. So at this point, I usually have questions about different fellowships. Usually Fulbright is one, or the critical language scholarships. I'm going to go back. Does anybody have questions about different fellowships in general? Yes, ma'am.
For the Truman Scholarship, if
Yes.
you're not going directly to graduate school, are you still eligible for that? Like if you go and are working as a professional in the field for a few years and then decide that you want to go back to graduate school, and does it specifically apply to like master's and PhD programs, or would it also apply to like JD programs?
I'll start with the last questions first. It does apply. It applies to either master's or they don't care, any type of graduate school. The biggest thing about the Truman that I dislike, okay, because I love the fellowships and I love when students are successful, but I don't make the rules, okay? They have their own rules, is there is a very limited time window to apply. So the next cycle, you have to be graduating in December 2019 or beyond to apply. So if you were graduating before then, you would not be eligible. So, but you had a question at the beginning of that, which was?
That was like,
Can you take some time off? I can't remember that, but I could check if somebody's interested. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Are there Fulbright teaching opportunities in South America?
Yes. There's lots of them. Let me just say a word about Fulbright. Usually if somebody says, I'm interested in applying for a teaching Fulbright, I say, that's great. What else do you want to apply for? Okay, so Fulbright is wonderful and great and terrific, and I love it. It's my favorite. But there's a lot of other good teaching opportunities. For example, you can teach in Spain for the government. You can teach in France for the government. You can teach through something called Princeton in Asia, Princeton in Africa. So I didn't bring it with me, but I have this long list of other opportunities. So if you're going to take the time to do a Fulbright, look at the other list and say, okay, I'm going to apply for Fulbright in South America, but I'm also going to apply for this other opportunity. It's like when you get a job. If you wanted a job, you wouldn't say, put my application at Walmart, gonna wait for them to call me, okay? You wouldn't do that, right? You'd say, I really need a job. So if you really want to teach overseas, and most of the time you're not the lead teacher, you're the assistant teacher, just FYI. So if you want to be an assistant teacher overseas, apply to multiple programs, not just one. And I saw another hand back there.
I was just kind of a similar question, but I was just, instead of South America, I was curious about Turkey, if that's.
I don't know if Turkey is open for the Fulbright or not. It may have closed, but we could look at the list. What I'm doing with Fulbright, just FYI, is I'm going to wait until after the workshop, which is this Thursday at 10 a.m., and then I'm going to set up individual appointments with students. So you can schedule an hour-long appointment with me. We can talk about what Fulbright options you're interested in. We can look at the requirements. But yeah, I think you have a lot of interesting national park experience, and I love all that. Yes, ma'am.
You had mentioned that English language teaching assistantships, that you don't really get to pick where, they kind of just place you. So how does that work? Do you have like it narrowed down to countries you wouldn't want to do, or
Yes.
is that how it works?
That's a great question. So with the Fulbright, when you go to the website, each country will have a description. So for Fulbright, you can teach with elementary school, middle school, high school, or at the university. And the website will tell you what type of placement you get. And it will also tell you how competitive it is, how many slots they have, and if there's other requirements for that. Some of the Fulbrights, the teaching Fulbrights, want you to do a fun side project. So it just depends on what they require.
Yeah, and with the Fulbright, if I can just insert this, you're always in a stronger position if you have a good reason for wanting to go to the particular country. And that's a very important element in the personal statement. So you want to choose wisely when it comes to the particular country.
Oh, I know what I was going to tell you. With the Fulbright, you don't get to pick the area of the country that you go to. So they don't tell you that on the website they don't tell you that until you get offered the Fulbright, but they do tell you, is it with small children, adults, and I usually tell students there's no right or wrong when you're sitting in my chair. If you don't like working with small children, don't work with small children, If you want to work with high schoolers or college age, choose that. It's really about what you want. So, and you had your hand up.
I was just wondering, if not, it's okay, but I was wondering if you could say a little bit about like maybe the requirements and like what it looks like for like the Peace Corps and maybe the other ones like Humanity in Action or Peace.
Yeah, sure. For the different types of opportunities, let me start with JET, okay? So with JET, that is English teaching in Japan. So what do you think the requirements are? You would immediately think you need to know Japanese. Guess what? You don't, okay? You don't have to have any teaching experience. Okay, and for JET, you say 1 to 5 years, all right? And it's a wonderful opportunity. The numbers are less competitive for JET, okay? So for JET, about half of the people get an interview, and about half of the people get a placement, okay? So it's roughly 25% of people that apply for JET get it. So those are pretty good numbers. So JET's a good option. The Peace Corps, the answer is they have so many different options, it's hard for me to speak to that, okay? It depends on the country you're going to, if you need language. They have a lot of good health options. The talk is in Korea, and it's a good option as well. The Humanity in Action is kind of different. It's more of a summer program, and it combines political action with political study. So that's a real interesting one. The Rotary Peace Fellowship, they like you to be a little bit more advanced, like they actually like master's degree people, but I like to promote that one because you might do it in the future. And you study peace and mediation. What languages do you speak any languages? If you don't, it's okay.
Yeah, I have a minor in Spanish.
Okay, so there's one that the Spanish government runs as well. So
Rotary Peace, or like they run it.
they run it. So it's in Spain. And I forget, I had the name on my sheet upstairs. So that would be a good option for you as well. So if you want to teach overseas, there's a lot of good options. Anybody else? Yes.
I saw there were a lot of options for like graduate school and then a lot of political science. Do you have any like pre-professional?
It depends. Yeah. The PPIA, Public Policy in Action, They have some summer programs for people who are interested in political action. I have a list in my office. So the tricky thing is there's a lot of different options for that. So if you want to shoot me an email, we can set up a meeting and then we can talk about the particulars.
Awesome, thank you. And also, I have one more question. Could you pair a teaching opportunity like this with something else? So I am planning to study abroad next summer in Costa Rica. And so could you pair something with teaching while you're there? That's kind of a weird question.
The answer is you probably couldn't pair a program, okay? For example, your study abroad is going to keep you busier than you think. And if you were doing another opportunity, it would keep you busy, so you wouldn't have time. But that's a great question. I've had a lot of students. I had one student that did a study abroad, and she volunteered at the elementary schools while she was there. So yeah, so she didn't, I don't know that it was anything formal that she did, but when she got down there, she talked to the professors and she said, hey, where can I volunteer? And the professor said, oh, I know a school, and she was a dancer. So she went and taught them English and dance. So that was one of our other Fulbrighters. So I don't know that you can do anything formally, but you probably could arrange something informally, and that would really strengthen a Fulbright or a teaching application. And then if you want to come see me before you leave, that'd be great. Other questions? I think I just want to, I will stay up here for a few minutes, okay? Because sometimes people have a question and they don't want to ask. But I would encourage you to contact me. There's my email and my phone number. There's a lot of different opportunities. I will be scheduling Fulbright meetings after our Fulbright workshop on Thursday. And my job is to, because sometimes the website can be a little bit overwhelming. So my job is just to learn about you, to talk about what your goals are, and to try to connect you with national opportunities. I love my job. I love working with students. And I think that's it. So thank you very much.